Life is a journey, filled with challenges, opportunities, and unexpected moments. But with the right strategies, we can find meaning, purpose, and fulfillment along the way. This podcast is to help navigate you to apply biblical principles into your everyday life's challenges. Welcome to the Strategies of Life podcast.
When you was talking about fighting, I was thinking of a million things in my head about the things that come out of fighting.
Right.
What it produces, and patience, endurance. There's always a lesson to be learned.
Well, see, when I seen the text message of the topic fighters, and that's what went through. That's one of the things that went through my mind is, if you look into a fighter, they have so many different things and structured about fighters. You have different types of fighters. You have, your left-handed,
Southpaw.
Southpaws.
Yeah.
You have your southpaw fighters. You have your boxers, your grapplers, your
Orthodox, unorthodox.
right, but you also have different personalities. You also have the fighter that's going to go in and take the fight to them, and then you have the fighters that's going to sit back and wait for the fight to come to them.
Right. Some are more aggressive.
Right.
Way more aggressive.
And when you have Mike Tyson, he is aggressive. He's usually the shorter one in the ring, and so he would go to them and make them boxing. And then when they start striking him, he would, he'd back off and just let them keep going. But when he began to just unleash it, he went after them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have Muhammad Ali. He was fast, and he would wait and let them bring the fight to him, and he would dodge and dance and miss, and he was studying their techniques and their structure, and he would be able to anticipate their next move and read their steps. And so he waited till they brought the fight to him, and then he would dance around and dodge them. But then when it come time to it, he seen his shot, he took his opportunity.
So seeing those techniques in a professional boxer, what would you say for a Christian man in a spiritual battle? What would you say that some techniques that you could use in a spiritual battle? In the sense of what you just said, with a professional boxer, they have this technique of fighting and conquering their enemy. But as Christian men, I mean, how do we do that?
Well, it's like any good fighter. They have a trainer. I mean,
That's good.
What better way to better yourself if you're starting out, you're young, you're trying to figure your way out, you're in a battle that you've never been in before. Finding somebody that has been there and finding somebody that's made their way through that struggle, to me, is the best advice that you can find. It's anything particular that I could tell you other than find somebody that's been there, that wears that battle scar, that's been there and dug in the trenches, that's fought their way out of it, because they may have endured some battles that I haven't experienced. And so my insight to it would just be typical advice: prayer and fasting. But they might be able to say, hey, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to go home, you need to talk to your wife and talk this out. You need, there's different battles that other people have been through that I may not have the insight on. I can give you a broad spectrum kind of point of view, but not as well as somebody like a trainer that's been in that fight before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's kind of something we mentioned the other night on the podcast. We was saying that basically go to somebody, don't be alone, don't be feeling defeated. I've always said go to God first. If you felt like it was something you couldn't conquer and it was literally hindering your mind, taunting you, number one, go to God. And if it was something beyond that you need some guidance with, go to someone in the church that's been through it, or maybe a leader.
That goes back to your training, though. I mean, if you're training, you're reading your Bible daily, you're exercising your spiritual life. Yeah. You're gonna have those skills when it comes time to face the storm.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like you were saying, the boxers, the first fight and then the second fight, and the more they fought, the better they got, the more they trained. So every fight there was a lesson, whether they were knocked down or whether they won the fight, whatever the case may have been. Mm-hmm. They learned something, they got training out of it. So I guess in a spiritual sense, when we go through a battle, we come on the other end learning something out of it.
Always carry a battle scar.
Yeah.
From it.
I always felt like that we go through the small battles to learn to fight the bigger ones ahead.
Well, it's like boxers. They go through a pretty extensive process before they even go pro. Like, you have to do all these amateur bouts, and, of course, you have to do sparring. So it's pretty much like most of the time whenever boxers will talk, they pretty much say the battle is before the fight even starts. Like, it's like the everyday process of like having to train. Like, once you get the training out of the way, the fight makes it easier. Like, a boxer doesn't just go into the ring with absolutely no training, they're going to get demolished. Like, there's like a lot of time before that they get to that point. So
it's a mindset too.
Well, it's even like Brother Adams was talking about. You know, the struggles that we go endure and we go through, it prepares you for what's to come. And every struggle is different, but every battle is too. They're not always the same.
They're never the same.
Every contender, every person that you would face in the ring is going to be different, you know. But I was talking to Brother Matt earlier, and you made the mention of having that trainer, you know, we was talking about trainers, and I was mentioning to Brother Matt earlier that a couple weeks ago the thought hit me, just riding down the road, and the thought hit me about sheepdog, the older sheepdogs, and this kind of thought that I heard that just hit me was be weary of the old sheepdog. And because an old sheepdog's an old sheepdog because he's learned to become an old dog.
Yeah.
Because sheepdogs are put out in the field to protect the sheep from the wolves, from the bears, from the lions, and the only way he can become an old one is he had to learn to fight. There's two ways that he survived to become an old dog. One, he had to come out and be just a scrapper and a fighter, and because of the struggle, it produced a fighter. Or you can be raised up by an older sheepdog and him train you and teach you. But the thing about the old sheepdog and the younger sheepdog is going to challenge the old one because he's full of energy, full of power, full of zeal, and he is just full of vigor, and he wants the dominant side.
Right.
But the thing about the old sheepdog, he's done been in this pen before.
Yes.
And so it's the fight between the younger one and the older one that makes the younger one better. Now he understands and learns dominance and the respect of the older sheepdog, which produces a better product.
That's it.
And this was my thought with the younger generation is they're going to challenge and they're going to buck and they're going to bow up and they're going to have their thoughts and their mindsets or their ideology or their ideas. It's not always a bad idea or bad situation, but there's also needs to be a trainer or an older dog that can help temper the zeal, not take away their fire, not take away their zeal, but just learn and know how to temper it.
No, you're talking about the old dog. I was thinking, it goes back to saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
They've already been there. They've already done it.
Right. But the thing is, I know us growing up in this place, there's a lot of things that we do now, it was because we was taught.
Because of the way we grew up.
But because there's new things, new technology, new things going on, we're having to adapt and learn it.
Right.
But it was because what was put in us as a child or as a young pup that taught us to honor and respect the house of God, to give it all that we have. It's like the computers, the sound system, the podcast that we're putting together. You don't want to do it halfway.
Right.
Because it was put into you a long time ago that this is a house of God, this is what's valuable, this should be the most important thing in your life because this is for God. It's not to be heard, not to be seen. It is for the house of God. And so you want to give it your best. And so what do? You spend hours at home or hours or time researching, studying, looking it up, trying to figure out how to make this the best that it can be. Why? Because we had a generation before us that taught us the value of the church. Every little thing in the youth or young people's life, and it's now it doesn't seem just something simple. Anything that happens, it's huge.
It's huge.
It's life changing. It's devastating.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as they don't like me no more.
You know, it's funny you say that because even when my kids, like my 18-year-old, it's like when things happen to him sometimes, in my eyes, it's so petty. And I remember growing up, I was like, I don't remember it being that such of a big deal.
Right.
And so he was telling me about some kids at school that were threatening suicide. And I said, well, what happened? What are they going through? Well, they got made fun of, and so I don't know. It's almost like this generation is everything's such, maybe media driven or something, such you got to fit in. Because, growing up, we heard sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, we were told, words don't hurt you then. And so they did hurt. They always hurt. We know that, but we found a way to conquer that. And so now today it's different. Now they're saying, well, words actually do hurt, worse than the sticks and the stones.
Right.
And so I find myself challenged with even my own kids because I got to be careful not to say, well, get over it. Or, hey, walk it off. It's okay. You're not dumb like they said you are. You don't look ugly like they said you are weird. And if they did, you come home at the end of the day. I mean, you have a wonderful family,
Right.
but it's different. It is different. Kind of like what you were saying a while ago. I know it's a different generation. So it's almost like it's a more fragile of a thing now. And it could just be the way I remember it. Maybe it was just the way we grew up. But it just seems like there was a shift there.
Well, I've actually been thinking along the same lines my own self. I'm going to show our age here, but when we were teenagers, the phone in your hand couldn't do what it does now.
That's true.
I mean, biggest game I had on my phone was Snake.
Well,
but now, you got these graphics, you got YouTube at the tip of your fingers. You can Google whatever you want right now and find out what
different world.
The world we live in now. It's easy to get a hold of stuff they don't need. There's all kinds of stuff on YouTube that doesn't belong.
Well, I like what you said.
In a child's hands.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because I just thought about that. If someone did say something bad about you when you were a kid, you had like 5 kids around you in your friend group.
Right.
Now, if they say something bad, it's on
It's
media. So now you got 10,000. You got the whole school and the school in the next town that's seen this post about you.
Right.
So it's a wider effect now.
Right. It's easier to get rid of that negativity. It's the whole school knows it in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and
you send out one mass text, then everybody knows.
Yeah, and having conversations with Cody in the past too, dealing with the youth, it is different, and so you do have to approach it from a different perspective now.
Right.
And so it is. It's a fragile.
You have to agree that everything's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you do. And then seriously, personally, that's what I had to learn with my own kids. I had to slow down a little bit.
Right.
And say, okay, if that little thing that I think's little bothered you that much, I need to slow down a little bit and figure this out. But you just made a good point. It's media. It's the cell phone. Right. We didn't have all that growing up.
We didn't have it.
Yeah, someone said something bad about you, you push them on the ground, hit them with a stick. I don't know,
Right.
You got it done, taken care of. It's done.
It's over with.
You get in a fight, you punch them in the nose. You're best friends the next day.
Right. It basically goes back to what you was talking about. Your 18-year-old. We actually contacted the school the past week or so, and we'd heard personally about the suicide stuff, and talked to the principal, and he's like, it's everywhere now. He says it's so much different now than what it was because he's not much older than we are. He says so much different now, what they're having to deal with in school. It's ridiculous what they're having to deal with. It's principals and teachers and staff.
But it's one of those things where it affects you.
Right.
It affects you, and in you being the younger one, it can affect you too because you're right there with them. You're connected to them. You're an influence in their life. They hear your voice. They know your voice. They respect you. They look up to you. And so you can see the effects of it and how the world has shifted for a time. And along the line of the thought of a warrior, the fighter, in the generation, in the book of Judges, when you was talking about it, it just triggered the thought. In the book of Judges, chapter 3, verse 2, it talks about that all the children of Israel should be taught to know war. That they should never not know how to war like the generation before them. That every generation from here on out needs to know how to fight. Not that they have to, but that they're not caught without preparation. That if someone was to come in like the enemy comes in like a flood, they'll know how to prepare themselves and defend themselves. And that's the reason Sunday school is so important. That's the reason youth university is so important, because You're getting things that's equipping you today for the battles down the road. It may not be some of the things that we might cover in Youth University. You may not experience it right now, but when you face that struggle years down the road, maybe my voice will echo in your ear, and you'll be like, "Hey, this is what got him through it. This is what got him through this situation. This is." I remember Brother Jim years ago telling the story about the trip down south with us to sell the sound system,
to pick up a sound system
for
for
the
the church,
sound system
right?
for the church, and on the way down there, they was going through gas like crazy, and they spent over half their money on the way down there, and they prayed about it when they got down there. Said, "God, we're doing this for you," something along that line, and he said that we need to make it home because this is all we have. And they made it all the way back home with half the money,
Half the fuel they
half
went,
the fuel.
that they made it there on.
Wow.
And that, and I tell Brother Jim all the time, I say, I appreciate you because you helped make me.
Builds your faith.
Anything that I become is because of the elders in my life.
Right.
Brother Ed Bailey, Brother Wilbanks, my dad, because they helped structure and build the outreach and that drive in the soul winning and Bible studies, and it helped structure that.
It's that core of the church.
Right, and there's not an elder that I can remember in my life growing up in here that didn't leave a thumbprint in my life. Sister Granny Henderson, Sister Wanda Kirk, Sister Cindy Rixey, Aunt Rachel, Uncle J.W., the love, the care, the sincerity that they all had.
Right.
I can remember as a young man going to Sister Granny Henderson during a service where God just moved in, and just for some reason I just felt drawn to her, and I went over and I just fell at the side of her pew and just laid my head down, and she just began to pray over me. And it's moments like that I'll never forget, but it helped make me who I am. Why? Because I know now the value of a prayer warrior and what it can do in your life. I remember when I was struggling as a young boy through school, they was talking about holding me back and struggling, and I just couldn't concentrate, couldn't focus. And at that time we had Daughters of Zion, and it was the ladies' prayer group that would come down here and they'd pray. And Sister Bonnie Callahan, she was over it at the time, and she come up to me, she said, "We're going to put you on our board, and we're going to make sure we pray for your schooling and your education." And they began to pray, and that next 6 weeks I went from struggling to A's and B's and C's. Now, granted, it took my work, but it also had favor from God, in my opinion. And that I truly believe that to this day, that I had to put in the work, but God helped me focus and maintain.
Wow. Well, just hearing you say all that, it just reminds me of the responsibility of our habits, of what we're showing the youth here. What do we do when we go home? What are our actions? Because like you just said, the fingerprints that were left on you, what fingerprints are we leaving on our children right now?
And I would go back to what you said. I guess men make men. So, it's kind of like y'all are fathers. I think like you would both say, like, if you felt like your child wasn't better than you, then you would fail as a man. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like the generation leaves more for the other generation. I mean, like, y'all have, like, each of you have, like, trickled down into my life personally to make, like, not saying I'm going to be better than y'all, but you see what I'm saying? Like, a piece of you is going to get in the next generation.
That's it.
So it's, like, going to keep...
It gets better and better if everyone takes responsibility. Somebody was talking to me the other day about Billy Graham and a couple of other famous pastors, and they say if you look back at their father's father, it wasn't like that. And they wasn't all that great into church and stuff, but they started with small things. It took one day, maybe the great grandfather woke up one morning and said, "I'm going to start, saving money, or I'm going to start reading the Bible," doing something positive, something productive. And it might have been something small for that generation, but then his children adopted that little bit and added to it.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, generations later, you got Billy Graham preaching in a football stadium.
Right.
And so that's the way I kind of visualize. And I've told my kids this too, especially my 12-year-old, is when I'm teaching him things, I was like, you're going to teach your kids this and more. And so it's just going to get better and better. Growing up when I was a kid, we were really poor. And so I decided I'm not going to let my kids adopt that.
Right.
And so by no means are we rich or anything, but we're okay. We're safe.
Right.
And so now my kids will have that to start off on.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it'll be better for their kids.
Right.
And my vision in the future is maybe some boy or some girl's going to be born into a very healthy Christian family that's going to love God, and maybe God can use in a mighty way. Mm-hmm. And so maybe the things that I do during the day may not seem like that big. And that goes for anybody. We may not feel like we're making a big difference, but just that little bit that you're doing is going to make a great difference. Probably something we couldn't even fathom. Your kids, when they get older, imagine your grandkids and their kids. We don't know who they're going to be. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you go home, and I challenge some of the adults in Sunday school class, put your phones down.
Right.
Put your phones down. Pick that Bible up. And we recently started doing it a lot more. We've always done it in our home. But now if we hear the kids coming down the hall or something, I don't care if I am reading the Bible on the phone, I put the phone down. I do not want my kids to see me with my face in the phone. Mm-hmm. And so we, started opening the Bible a lot more in the living room. We normally read before we go to bed. And my oldest son came to there the other night, and he was like, "Oh, cool, y'all reading the Bible?" He said, "Can we do like a little Bible study?" And he got his Bible, and I was like, "Oh my goodness! If we'd have had our phones out, we'd have missed that moment." Right. He'd have went to the kitchen, got a snack, went back to his room, and more than likely picked his phone up and followed suit.
Mm-hmm.
You say men make men, fighters make fighters too, and it's in my opinion, it's the little things that you do.
Yeah.
I mentioned Brother Ed Bailey. I was young. I don't know, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. And at the time, the way the ushers would take care of the water for the ministers, we had the goblet cups and the pitcher of water, and we'd fill it with ice and wash it and bring it up here. Well, one Sunday, out of nowhere, for no particular reason, Brother Eddie come by me and said, "Hey, come on, I want to teach you something." And then he took me back there and he showed me, so I want you to watch what I'm doing, and I want you to start doing this every week. In every service, that's what I did. It's like Brother Jody with little Riker. Riker goes up there, he gets the offering plate, and he follows him out. When he gets done with it, now, when it started, he would walk him back, little Riker back up here with the offering plate. But now, Riker can go back up there, and he knows where it goes, and he knows when the church service is over, we need to get this and get
That's
back
it.
there.
I watched him, yeah.
There's little bitty things like that, because Brother Eddie, he took the time, and even my dad, he was a part of it, would get the pitcher of water and the glasses, and we'd get them from the platform. We'd go back here and we'd wash them. We'd get fresh ice, fresh water, and take it back up there clean. And it was just like Nehemiah in the Bible, the cupbearer to the king. It was a simple task, but because he took pride in it, even as a slave. Man. He took pride in it, and he found favor in the king. So when he heard of Jerusalem and his heart was in sorrow, the king recognized it and said, "Here, go do what you got to do. You got my authority, you got my approval, you got my timber, you got my money. You do what you need to do. Take care of yours."
That's good.
And things like that, it impacts you, and it builds you to make you who you are, if you can appreciate it.
It's those little things.
Right. And I guess, like we talked about, there's different kinds of people, different kinds of fighters. Some people value the training. But because they have there's other fighters that because they have natural born talent, they don't appreciate the old man in the room trying to teach him.
Yeah.
But you take the one that has no talent, no skill, no nothing, and you put him with a trainer because he's hungry and because he wants to learn, he can make him a champion because he's willing to listen.
But before the champion, I feel like it starts with the mentality.
Right.
Fighters have to go through a
Right.
consistent, their mind just changes and it constantly breaks. So
it's a lot of the fighters will tell you it's just mind game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you've got to have it made up in your mind. Hey, I'm going in here, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Don't go in there and say I'm going to try to win. I'm going to win.
Yeah, and don't stop. Keep moving.
Right.
It's the small steps, really. Like I said, it's a race that we're not seeing who gets in first place, or particularly we just got to finish the race.
Right.
I used to do the 5K runs and stuff in Texas, and I remember doing I think it was like a 10K run or something. And I don't know why, but I was just really desperate to finish at a good number, and I didn't. And so anyway, during the race, we had 3 guys come in last place out of, I think it was like 100 people. And he had sprained his ankle. And so 2 guys were carrying him. But when they come across the finish line, the same amount of people were cheering them. And even the guys who got first place and second place and third place, they were cheering them. And so actually the last place runners got more cheer than anybody.
Right.
And so, it's kind of like that visual understanding of it's not what place we come in, it's just that you keep going, you don't stop. If you can't read the Bible, because I've been there before where I was so broken or so much in a battle that I just didn't have the strength to pick the Bible up and read through it. But if you can't read through the Bible, read one verse. If you can't read a verse, listen to a worship song. If you can't listen to a worship song, talk to a friend. The most important thing in a battle is do not stop.
Right.
You got to keep your eyes on the prize and just keep going.
So what would you guys say to people that feel like they're not a fighter and they feel like every single day they wake up they're weak?
Well, like Cody said earlier, find that support. You can't fight alone. It was not meant for us to fight alone. That's what we said the other night. That's the one place that we're going to feel defeated. Even though sometimes we're really not defeated, we're going to feel that way, and we're going to become defeated because we literally just put ourselves in that mindset. Link up with somebody.
I think that goes back to training too, though. If you're training the whole time, when you do have that downtime, you're going to have the tools, the skills there,
and you're going to know it's okay.
Another thing that we can understand is we always look at David, that David was in the wilderness by himself when he fought the lion, when he fought the bear, when he went to Goliath. The whole army of Israel was hiding in the caves and behind the rocks and didn't want to go out to face Goliath. And we all picture David going out on his own and facing it. But the only reason I believe that David went out there and was able to face him by himself is because he knew he wasn't alone. Because he spent time in the wilderness writing songs and worshiping and praying, and he knew that God was with him. Why? Because God gave him the strength to kill the bear, to kill the lion. And so when he went before Goliath, he knew that he wasn't alone. He'd already found his support, and he knew that God was going to be there. Why? He knew God was faithful. In every situation that he fought, that every battle he ever fought in, even when it was against Saul, he knew that God was faithful. He knew there was a purpose in his life. He knew that there was a calling in his life. But before he even stepped out on the field with Goliath, he's like, there's nobody going to stand against this man that defies our God, the one true God. And so when he went out there, he knew that he wasn't fighting alone. But it took other experiences and it took other previous battles to build that kind of confidence and faith. And it's like, yet again, it goes back to Brother Adam, or Aaron Adams, is the struggle that produces the product that he needed to become to face David.
And look what he killed him with, a stone. A sling and a stone. You got all this army out there with massive weapons, and he killed the giant with the very thing that he had on his side the whole time. And so sometimes we feel like, if we had more money, if we had that bigger job, if we had more friends, sometimes if we look around us, we already have the very thing that is our strength, and it is going to slay that giant.
He tried on Saul's armor. He tried on his helmet, and he said, "I have not proved this. I'm not worthy. This. I'm not worthy. I haven't proven this yet. I haven't used this. I haven't trained with this. I can't do my best with all the extra stuff."
Well, let me ask you this: if David never would have fought a lion, a bear, let's just say he never had a fight for anything really, and he faced a giant that day, do you think it would have been the same outcome?
Probably not, and not to take away from the biblical story, but if you think about it, I understand Goliath was a giant of a man, but a bear and a lion is no easy task. I feel like people in the story, they try to sweep that under the rug, like, oh, it was just a lion and a bear. Like, this dude literally...
Have you ever fought a lion or a bear?
He took down a lion and a bear. So I figured, obviously, you'd be a little scared if you go against, I don't know exactly how tall Goliath was, 9 foot. But, I mean, he's probably in his head, I'm good. God was there when I took down the lion. God was there when I took down the bear. Yeah, this is another task, but I mean, I'm good.
So you would say that it took conquering the small battles, to end up conquering that giant that day.
I would say.
And so I would say, I guess in our lives, maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe God builds us up. He already sees ahead, so there's this massive battle coming. There's this big giant coming.
And I would say he had the warrior's heart.
Yeah.
to be the warrior before he went into the fight with Goliath. He already had it in him. He didn't just magically become a warrior in that exact setting. He already had it in him before he went into battle, is how I would look at that, you know.
That's good.
That brings me back to something that Cody was saying earlier, with our heritage that somebody instilled into us. That's how we become fighters. It's because it's not by the battles that we're facing, it's by battles that they faced and they instilled into us.
To kind of help equip us.
Exactly, help equip us.
I had this thought about the warriors, the idea of a soldier or a warrior in the time of David. And they would come back to the camp, or they would come back home with their wife and their children, and they just got out of battle. And they're tired, they're battle weary, because, they're fighting with swords and spears and shield, and they're not 500 yards away hitting them with something, with a 308 or something. They're up there close and they're personal.
That's it.
And they're fighting with swords. And there's one of David's mighty men that he had in his counsel and leadership, said that he fought so ferocious that his hand clenched to the sword so tightly that he had to force his hand open to release the sword. That's how intense these battles were. And so, how long do you think it went before a young soldier got cut? So when the soldier would come home to his children, and he was patched up and he was bloody, he was cut up, he had scars, especially old warriors, like an old sheepdog, they got scars to prove that, hey, I'm here for a reason. And so the soldier would go home and he would sit around the campfire, and his children would come out and was like, Daddy, what is that from? This was from that battle, and this was from that battle. I can remember when I got this one, I was actually standing shoulder to shoulder with David that day when we were fighting. And I can remember when I lost my eye, or you picture the old rugged warrior. They are battle torn and they are scarred.
Right.
But it's only their testimony that how they overcame. And so sitting down and sharing it with the younger generation, they may not have wanted to tell the story to their children, or they may say, one day I'll explain this to you, one day I'll tell you about it, but they had a story to tell.
Well, so in a way, when the enemy comes to you then and tries to remind you of your scars, you could say, well, this didn't kill me. This is where I survived. This is where I was strong. This is where I defeated you. And let it be a reminder to the enemy that you didn't kill me here. Yeah. I survived here.
And it brings back to memory, we're overcomers by the word of our testimony.
Yeah.
And if we all opened up and shared our scars, that the testimonies that people could tell that nobody sees, because you see your scars.
Yeah. The testimony's in our scars.
Right. Exactly.